Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Yes, I'm here, present and correct. Good evening and welcome. Nice to have your company again for another edition of Live on Eire, the Irish programme. I am happy to report that I am away from the bad weather in Ireland. I'm back in Spain, but I'm still working remotely. So if you'd like to get in contact with the programme, you can do it two ways. Firstly, you can send a WhatsApp if you'd like to +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio, or you can use my own email address if you like, which is Ger, G-E-R, @tre.radio. Before I tell you what's happening on this evening's programme, let me say thank you to Howard Brereton for this evening's edition of Spain Today. Howard, thank you very much indeed. I hope that you and Luna have a very pleasant evening in Eire this evening, and we look forward to hearing from you again tomorrow between 6 and 7 for another edition of, I was going to say Live on Eire, Spain Today. I liked that song that you finished with. You have a great taste in music, Mr. Brereton. There's no getting away from it. None whatsoever. Right, what have we got for you tonight on the programme? Well, I'm going to present two brothers, Richard and David Mulcahy, in the second hour of the programme. They have initiated a wonderful project which is called 100 Million Trees Project. It's a community-based project, and the object is to plant 100 million trees in the space of 10 years. And they're flying through it, having a ball, really enjoying it. They're going to join me in the second hour of the programme. And in the first hour, Patricia Traynor joins us. And as you are aware, if you're regularly listening to Live on Eire, Patricia is currently in the middle of telling us stories about some of Ireland's waterways and lakes. And tonight we get a lake. There's also a story about a waterfall, and there's some poetry in there as well. Are you intrigued? Well, then Patricia will be with us in this hour of the programme. We've got some good music for you lined up as well. And all Irish music, of course, on Live on Eire, and music from Irish artists. A couple of new ones in there, a couple of ones that you will be familiar with already. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing all those to you. And I've picked up a bit of news as well, different bits and pieces that I've picked up over the last day or so. And I'll bring them to you. Of course, as I mentioned at the top of the programme, huge storms in Ireland over the last couple of days, and still people without water, still people without electricity. So our thoughts are with those people, and hopefully things aren't too bad. A little bit calmer today, I believe, weather-wise in Ireland. So we send greetings from a very warm, now during the day when the sun is shining, a very warm Spain. Where I am, there's about 19 degrees today, or thereabouts, just smashing, although I was indoors for a lot of it, getting ready for this evening's programme. Oh, I want to tell you as well, Francis Butler is back with an exclamation mark. Francis, a beautiful programme that he presents. He's starting a brand new series of musical ramblings, and it's going to be on Sunday, the 4th of February from 1 p.m. and every Sunday from then on. Alrighty? And the programme then will be repeated the following Saturday at 6 p.m. So delighted to hear that Francis is making a return to the airwaves on Talk Radio Europe. I'll be looking forward to that. So put that in your diary. Sunday, 4th of February from 1 p.m. every Sunday. Alright, just after Selena's programme. So there we go. Now, the programme for the 40th anniversary of the Limerick Literary Festival was launched this afternoon by novelist Dan Mooney. The festival will run on February the 23rd, 24th and 25th at the Duradoyle Library and at the Bell Table on O'Connell Street. The event continues to honour the life and works of the Limerick author Kate O'Brien, while attracting prominent participants from all over the world. The Limerick Literary Festival is this year celebrating its 40th anniversary, alongside the 50th anniversary of the death of Kate O'Brien. It originally started as the Kate O'Brien Weekend, you may recall, back in 1984, and that was started to mark the 10th anniversary of her death. Now, at the first Kate O'Brien weekend in 1984, poet Evan Boland spoke of Kate's legacy and of the enduring quality of her work, saying that by accepting that if a work of art is good, it is good not because it is feminine, but because it is human. All right. She went on to end her talk with the following words of wisdom, that by remembering writers who were banned during their lifetimes, we will, this is the quote, we will have discharged our debt to writers like Kate O'Brien, who made their way in the harder times, unaware of the gratitude that we now feel and unable to benefit from it. Who told their own truth and therefore made the way safe for others. And now we, in turn, she says, have to make a truth which justifies that safe passage. There we go. Building on this significant history, the Limerick Literary Festival seeks to promote Limerick nationally as a place of literary excellence and to provide a platform where readers can meet their favourite authors and other readers. Now, the 2024 festival, as I said, the programme for that was launched this afternoon, will be opened with an intimate evening of words and music by spoken word artist and musician Denise Celia. And the full weekend programme features authors like Vona Groke, Mary Morrissey, Antoine Laurent, Francis Spufford, Dorothy Cross, Dr. Jana Fischarova, Elaine Feeney and Jane Clark. It will also feature perennial favourite Desert Island Books and a session with poetry pharmacist. What's a poetry pharmacist? William Seigart. And the presentation of the 2024 Kate O'Brien for a debut novel, the Kate O'Brien Award for the debut novel by a female Irish author. The winner of the award will be chosen from a previously published shortlist. The festival will close on Sunday the 25th with internationally renowned author Claire Keegan. Now, of course, there is a connection between our Antonio Sierra, who is the Spanish-Irish kind of advisor on this particular programme, and Kate O'Brien. Oh, there is. There are two streets in Spain that are named after the author. One is in a place called Gotarandura. Now, I didn't pronounce that correctly, but it's as good as I could do. That's a little village of less than 100 people associated with St. Teresa of Avila in the county of Avila. And the other is in a city, or the city of Avila. Antonio Sierra was the promoter of both ideas, right? Something that took several years of writing letters and attending meetings until the approval of the two councils was secured. There's also, Antonio tells me, a plaque with her name on the door of the room where she liked to stay in a little hotel opposite the cathedral in Avila that was called Hotel Jardín, now known as Puerta del Alcázar. All right, so there we go. Nice one. And it was actually Antonio sent me all that information about the launch today of the programme. And we wish them well on the 23rd, 24th and 25th of February. I'm having difficulty, not having difficulty breathing. I don't want to worry anybody. Just trying to get my breath under control as I speak, which is rather unusual for me. Maybe it's just the way I'm sitting. So forgive me. Along with the news coverage of Storm Isha over the weekend and subsequent days, probably the biggest story over the weekend in Ireland was the death of Ian Bailey, who was the main suspect in the murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. Now, much has been aired and written about him and the case in the intervening days, and there isn't much that I can offer here by news today, except to say to you that it was confirmed by his solicitor that Ian Bailey has been cremated in Cork. In a statement from his next of kin, Keir Reynolds, which was issued through Mr. Bailey's solicitor, Frank Buttimer, the private event was confirmed to have taken place this morning. And following that confirmation, Mr. Buttimer said that no further statement will be issued by the next of kin in the matter. We haven't heard the last of that name by any stretch of the imagination. And you probably remember about 2 years ago, there were two. One was a Netflix, I think, and one was a Sky documentary about that whole thing, that whole murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier, and the fact that Ian Bailey was the main suspect in that. And I think the two documentaries kind of They showed two different sides, and I think people watching both of them were conflicted because one had their mind made up on one way and the other had mind made up on the other way, and so on. So, as I said, I think this is a gift that's going to continue giving for a little while. We haven't heard the last of Ian Bailey's name, but for the moment, or Yeshde Goreva on him. Now, the world's oldest yacht club has elected its first female admiral, or commodore. Founded in 1720, the Royal Cork Yacht Club. Now, imagine that. The oldest yacht club in Ireland, in the world is in Ireland. It's in Crosshaven. A beautiful part of the world. Anyway, they made history with the election of Anne-Marie Fagan as Admiral of the club, a former coastal rower. Miss Fagan is best known in sailing circles and co-owner of a boat with her husband, Dennis Murphy, and their daughters Molly and Mia, which won the best Irish boat in the Fastnet race last year. Commenting on her election, Miss Fagan said that she stands on the shoulders of outstanding female members who worked tirelessly for the club, but were not given this opportunity. She said one of her main ambitions is to make sailing more accessible. Not everybody can afford to own a boat, but every boat needs a crew, and we are always looking for crew, she said. Anybody can get involved these days, and it's really great sport. Sailing is, she says, great for mental health, getting out in the fresh air, and it opens up fantastic opportunities. In her history of the club, Dr. Alicia St. Ledger said that the Water Club of the Harbour of Cork was founded in 1720 after King Charles, not the current one obviously, but King Charles of England, exiled in the Netherlands, was introduced to the Dutch sport of yachting. And of course, 1720, Ireland would have been part of the British Empire at that stage. So there we go. All right, I think now I try and get my breathing kind of under control, and let's take a piece of music. I was starting music this afternoon and I kind of had decided what I was going to start with, but then at about 10 to 7 I got an email from PJ Curtis, and he said, Ger, you might want to take a listen to this fella, he's very good. And I listened to it, and he's very good. Apparently he was seen up around for Hiliana and around that area last week as well. So let's take a track. A man from County Donegal, Jody Gallagher, Day's Gonna Come.
Day's gonna come when the water runs out and the well runs dry. A man so dumb and fish can't swim and birds can't fly. But what you gonna do when the crops won't grow and the sun won't shine and it's 10 below? I'm never gonna say that I told you so, but the day's gonna come. Who you gonna follow when you realize they were all wrong? Who can you believe when you know you've been deceived for far too long? You can cover your lips and your ears and your eyes, and you'll hear no, see no, tell no lies. Ain't no way you can ever deny that the day's gonna come. Day's gonna come when the world we know is gonna make us pay all the debt we owe. What a crime, what a sin, what a mess she's in. Yeah, the day's gonna come. And a night so dark it'll scare the brave, and a wind so cold it'll chill the grave, and the master working for the slave. Yeah, the day's gonna come. I see a day when the whole world will fall down on its knees, praying and a begging and crying to the Lord, mercy on me. But you can run, but you can't hide, all the saints and the sinners side by side, waiting for Jesus coming out of the sky. Yeah, the day's gonna come. Nothing left worth fighting for. No more hate, no more fear, no more war. Every bomb, every gun was MIA. Every soldier turned and walked away. But I can only hope and pray that the day's gonna come. The day's gonna come when the world we know is gonna make us pay all all the debt we owe. What a crime, what a sin, what a mess she's in. Yeah, the day's gonna come. And the night so dark it'll scare the brave, and the wind so cold it'll chill the grave, and the master working for the slave. Yeah, the day's gonna come. The day's gonna come when the world we know is gonna make us pay all the debt we owe. What a crime, what a sin, what a mess she's in. Yeah, the day's gonna come. What a crime, what a sin, what a mess she's in. Yeah, the day's gonna come.
That's Jodie Gallagher from County Donegal. Another pick from PJ Curtis. PJ, thank you very much for that. That's a Jodie spotted around for Heliana and the Nara area last week. Don't know if he was gigging or what was going on, but there you go. If he's listening, we wish him well. And should get in touch sometime. Do please. Be nice to have a chat, particularly if you happen to be gigging along the coast. And we could certainly have a chat with you. No, what have I got for you? More news, if I can find it. Here it is here. Independent Senator David Norris has delivered his final speech in Shannon, after which he officially resigned and ended 36 years membership of the Upper House. Several senators praised Senator Norris for his time in politics. Speaking in the Shannon Chamber, Cohirlock, chairperson of the Shannon and Fine Gael Senator Jerry Buttimer told Mr. Norris, "Your passion didn't or hasn't diminished, as we could see from what your final contribution contained." Independent Senator Michael McDowell said that Mr. Norris championed causes throughout his career. In a formal letter, President Michael D. Higgins said that Senator Norris's career had been a journey of unwavering dedication to public service. In another letter, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar said that he spoke for many people, saying, "We stand on your shoulders in your campaign, or in your campaigns you show true leadership." Mr. Norris announced his retirement in November. He told the Trinity News that he intends to move to Cyprus to enjoy some sunshine. Mr. Norris said that it was time to pass the baton on to the next generation. He had been a member of Shannon since 1987, one of the best known senators in the Shannon, one of the most outspoken, and one that championed causes and changed a lot in Ireland. He did. He changed quite a lot, a significant amount down through the years. So we wish him well in his retirement, and hopefully he will have a long and happy one. Now, speaking of Shannon, the Shannon has passed the second stage of the government's referendum legislation on family and care by a majority of 25-4, following a debate early on this week as well. So just wanted to mention that to you, because you probably are aware that there are two referenda have been called, and sure, it has to go through the various stages. So the Shannon has passed their particular stage, and they're delighted with themselves. Thrilled altogether. Now, here's an interesting one. Today, Trinity College Dublin gave away more than 100 birch seedlings that accidentally grew during No Mow May last year. The seedlings came from two birch trees, which have been growing next to Trinity's iconic front porch since the 1950s. They appeared when the university halted mowing its usual manicured lawns last May. The idea was to let the wildflowers that live in the lawns bloom and provide food for pollinators. Professor Jane Stout, the Vice President of the Biodiversity and Climate Action at TCD, said. As part of that, about 30 species of plant came up, including a really interesting orchid. And these birch seedlings, she said, because the lawns weren't mown, the seedlings managed to establish and grow. And the college extended the No Mow May right through until September. Will you try say it quickly? It's easier if I just break it up that way. At that point, she says the seedlings were potted and have been cared for by the university's gardening team. Mark Loughlin, the groundsperson at Trinity College Dublin, said that they dug them up and have them in the greenhouse ready to give them away to people. He says it just shows that when you let a lawn go and don't mow it constantly, life would come back into it. It could be a nice little legacy to pass on, a tree from Trinity College Dublin growing in your back garden, wouldn't it be? That'd be lovely. Now, the birch seedling giveaway marks the launch of Trinity's first ever sustainability strategy. The approach taken to sustainability is a really holistic one, Professor Stout said. Realising the college must change what it's doing across everything that happens there, through education programmes, research, and through the day-to-day operations, she said. Trinity is looking at climate action, biodiversity loss, health and well-being, and linking its own human health with planetary health. Now, people were able to receive a free birch seedling from 10 o'clock this morning on a first-come, first-come, first-served basis. Professor Stout commenting that the lovely thing about them is that they're really symbolic of this new beginning, this new start, and the regeneration of life. And really, when we give nature a chance, she says, it really takes that chance. There we go. We'll be talking more about trees in the second hour of the programme, as I mentioned to you. Actually, we're not done with trees either. Let me tell you what about this story. I was going to keep it a little later, but it's farther down along the script here. Let me find it here. Notice here somewhere. There it is, actually. Yep. Several trees. This isn't good news. Several trees in Northern Ireland, made famous by the TV series Game of Thrones, have been damaged and felled by Storm Isha. Ah, pity. Work was underway to clear up the Dark Hedges site in County Antrim. The Tunnel of Trees became famous when it was featured in the HBO fantasy series and now attracts significant numbers of tourists from around the world. Last year, work was carried out to remove 6 of the Dark Hedges trees and to carry out remedial work on several others after surveys highlighted safety issues over their condition. Concerns have been raised about the state of several of the ancient beech trees for a number of years. The weekend storm felled 3 of the trees. And the UK's Department of Infrastructure said last year that the independent specialist survey had found that 11 trees out of a total of 86 were in poor condition and could pose a potential risk to the public. Following discussions with relevant landowners and other stakeholders, arrangements were made to remove a number of the trees, retaining the stumps, which was good. The trees were planted to line Brega Road. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Bregagh, Brega Road or Bregagh Road, to Grace Hill House, which was built around 1775. And originally there were about 150 trees. Sad to see them go, wasn't it? But there you go. So there we go. That's it. If you were a fan of Game of Thrones, you will know not that I'm not a fan, just I haven't seen it. No, I haven't. And I've promised myself I will start it, but I haven't as yet. But I do know of the scenes that they were talking about. I've seen a couple of them. I've seen a couple of the scenes, as the fellow says. Makes sense, doesn't it? It does, yeah, definitely. Here's new music from Picture This. Got just 24 and a half minutes after the hour. Wednesday evening.
I wanna catch the butterflies feeling. I wanna dance until we can't more. I wanna be the alibi you needed. I wanna lay beside you on the floor. I wanna be the exit when you're leaving. I wanna love you like this forevermore. I wanna take the pink in your complexion. I wanna paint it all over the walls. I wanna take the future you're expecting. I wanna make it elegantly yours. I wanna find the beauty in the wreckage. I wanna love you like this forevermore. Don't you let me let you slip out of my hands. It's some kind of act of innocence. I wanna bathe in all the tears of crying. I wanna make you part of my charm. You know my baby, I would die trying to find a space in your arms. I wanna stay beautiful and silent. I wanna love you like this forevermore. I wanna carry all your burdens. I wanna put them up on my back.
brand new music in 2024 from Picture This. That's a song that's called Act of Innocence. I like that a lot. I'm going to take a very quick break. Come back to me, please, just after that, and I will introduce you to Patricia Traynor.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Isn't it hard to believe that it's the 24th of January already? It is, and we have still one more programme to do after this in January because it's a 5-week month for me for Live on Eire. So next Wednesday, 31st of January, Christmas seems like a dim and distant memory. Did it really happen? Did it? I wonder. All right. Patricia Traynor joins me, as you know, not every week, but some weeks to tell us stories. And she tells wonderful stories, and she has about 120 of them done now, maybe more at this stage, over the last 4.5 years or so. And they're always interesting as she kind of, bundles them together in little series. And at the moment, she's telling us stories about the waterways, the rivers and the lakes of Ireland. And today, there's a lake, and there's a waterfall, and there's poetry. And let's introduce her. Patricia Traynor, what have you got for us?
Well, hello, Ger. We've talked about the biggest lake in Ireland, Lough Neagh, but today I'm going to talk about a smaller lake, which is in Sligo and also partly in Leitrim. I'm referring to Lough Gill, which is about 8 kilometres long and 2 kilometres wide. It drains into the river Garavogue near Sligo town. It has about 20 small islands and is also a protected site under EU law. But there is one particular small uninhabited island which attracts hundreds and probably thousands of people every year who come not only to see the flora and fauna of the area, but also to see one little uninhabited island in particular. I'm talking about the Isle of Innisfree. This name, Innisfree, is Irish and means Island of Heather. The famous poet and dramatist William Butler Yeats wrote a poem called The Lake Isle of Innisfree, which is highly acclaimed all over the world. Yeats always looked to Sligo for his inspiration, and it was there that he first came to explore the Celtic sagas and legends. He was enchanted by the folklore and the stories that were told to him by the local people. When Yeats was 7, his family relocated to Sligo. They stayed there for 2 years, and those years and other happy summers in Sligo caused Yeats to call Sligo his country of the heart. He enjoyed being out in the fresh air, in touch with nature, and enjoyed the peace and tranquility he found there. Some years later, he remembered those happy times with nostalgia and wrote one of his most well-known poems, The Lake Isle of Innisfree. He wrote it in 1888, but it was published in 1893. In fact, it even features in the Irish passport today, so have a look at your passport. In case you're wondering, Innisfree does still exist. It is a little uninhabited island in Lough Gill in County Sligo, near where Yeats spent his summers as a child. However, the locals say that the actual Innisfree island is too small, and in his poem, Yeats was probably referring to Church Island, which is the largest island on Lough Gill. Years later, Yeats says, he was inspired to write the poem when one day he was walking along Fleet Street in London and he passed by a shop which had a little fountain in the window. There was a jet of water balancing a little ball on top of the water. The gentle noise of the water trickling down reminded Yeats of those idyllic days he had spent in Sligo as a child. It conjured up memories of bliss and happiness. He was overwhelmed with nostalgia and felt homesick. The noise of the water trickling down the fountain reminded him of the noise of the water lapping on the shores of the lake in Sligo. He remembered those happy days, and he was inspired to write The Lake Isle of Innisfree. Compared to his stressful, boring, monotonous life in the city, he yearned for that place where he was able to find solitude and peace, which allowed him to connect with the world on a deeper spiritual level. This is clear in the last verse of his poem, where he expresses his desire to return to the Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear the lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements grey. I hear it in the deep heart's core. I have talked a lot about rivers and lochs in Ireland, but another source of Ireland are the impressive waterfalls. Yeats was fascinated with the sagas and legends of Ireland, where water has always played an important role. He was captivated by the 15-metre high Glen Carr waterfall, which he mentions in his poem The Stolen Child. He loved hearing stories about the other world and the mysterious lives of the fairies, who sometimes took children away and replaced them with changelings. He was intrigued by these tales, which no doubt inspired his poem, The Stolen Child. Many people would think those stories weren't really appropriate for children. But when we think about it, children's stories are often really frightening. Just think of Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, or the story of the Three Little Pigs. Well, Yeats loved those stories of fairies and legends. He wrote The Stolen Child when he was 21, and he was inspired by the magnificent Glen Carr waterfall, which cascades into the lake in Glen Carr Valley. The valley was formed many thousands of years ago by glacier movements during the last ice age, and for Yeats, listening to the cascading water was almost a link to the culture of the past. The waterfall has been described as magical and romantic, and for Yeats it was inspirational. In a way, Yeats' poem indicates a yearning for those happy childhood days of innocence and conjures up a memory of his time in Sligo. So let's hear a little of the poem. The following 4 lines are repeated at the end of each of the 4 verses. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. The continuous repetition of these lines creates a musicality to the poem. At the beginning of the 3rd verse, he also mentions Glen Carr waterfall when he says, where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glen Carr, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star. It's a beautiful poem full of nostalgia for the past, where Yeats remembers his fantasy world in Sligo, something that remained with him all his life.
I've met some folks who say that I'm a dreamer, and I've no doubt there's truth in what they say. But sure a man is bound to be a dreamer when all the things he loves are far away, and precious things are dreams unto an exile. They take him o'er the land across the sea, especially when it happens he's an exile from the dear lovely Isle of Innisfree. And when the moonlight peeps across the rooftops of this great city, it's wonder or it's laughter, I'm once again back home in Inishfree. I wander green hills through dreamy valleys and find a peace no other land would know. I hear the birds make music fit for angels and watch the winds laughing as they fly. And then into a humble shack I wander, my dear old home, and tenderly behold the folks I love around the turf are gathered on bended knees, their rosaries told. But dreams don't last, though dreams are not forgotten, and soon I'm back to start reality. But though they pave the footways here with gold dust, I still would choose my Isle of Inishfree.
Beautiful harp playing in there as well, isn't there? Celtic Woman and the Isle of Inishfree. Thank you to Patricia for her story about Lough Gill on the Sligo-Leitrim border. And William Butler Yeats getting an own mention in there as well, a lot of it. So I had to play that song, really, didn't I? I did. So that's it now. Patricia, thank you so much indeed. And we look forward to the next time that we hear a story from you as well. And if you happen to be tuned in, all the best, and hope all is well with you. What else have I got to tell? Oh yes, all of the stories that we've gathered from Patricia, I tell you this every time, but just because there's new people joining us all the time, which is great. And we've put them together in a podcast series. They're all there, every single one of them, from day one. And I was looking at the numbers and the figures today. There's almost 70,000 people have listened to those just on that podcast series. And we don't advertise it apart from here, which is incredible. You can sometimes spend so much time promoting something and nothing happens. And this thing has just taken off hugely. So well done to Patricia. And thank you, Patricia, for all that you do for Live on Eire. If you want to listen to any of those stories, you can do that wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for Stories of Ireland and the Irish. And or you can look for Patricia Traynor, or look under my name as well. Ger, Ger Sweeney, Sweney. And you'll find them there, because as the author of it, I think my name comes up on it as well. So that's it. Right, so I'm going to do another quick break. Come back to me after that. I'll have another few stories for you, and we'll have more music as well.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
And you're welcome back. Patricia mentioned there about the passport and about the picture of Lough Gill in your passport, on the Irish passport. And it dawned on me, I didn't know that. And not only that, but I didn't know what other pictures were on the various pages of the Irish passport. So I took it out and I had a quick look through. And I think, I'm not sure, is this the page with Lough Gill on it? But there's a salmon. It looks like a salmon jumping and a man fishing. And that could be it. But there's also not a story, but a message that runs through, that's written in English and in Irish, about the people of Ireland and who's entitled to the passport, and how we love to stretch our arms across various nations and all that. And it's I went through it. I spent about a half an hour going through it today and looking at it again now. And there's pictures there that are kind of watermarked, if you know what I mean. Croke Park is in there. The Cliffs of Moher there as well. There's things there's a ring fort, places I don't recognise, people playing sport. A lot to do with the culture, the Irish culture. Obviously, it makes huge sense. So, Patricia, fair play to you for making me think, I've never done that. Weird, isn't it? I kind of felt weird that when I kind of started looking through and saw what was there, I said to myself, where have you been? What rock have you been living under? Anyway, 25 schools have transferred from single-sex to co-ed status within the past 3 years. That's according to the Department of Education. The number highlights a growing trend towards co-education, which is being led by parents who wish to see their girls and boys educated together. The 25 schools that have transferred are mostly primary schools, but the trend is across both primary and secondary level, or second level. A separate analysis of Department of Education enrolment data reveals the extent of the shift at post-primary level. 70% of second level students now attend mixed schools compared to 65% 10 years ago. The shift has taken place at a time when numbers attending have risen dramatically by almost 50,000 to be precise. Since 2014, a total of 36 single-sex secondary schools have either amalgamated or closed down, while 35 new mixed post-primary schools have opened. Some of those schools will have been created through the amalgamation of single-sex schools. The Department of Education data indicates that 511 post-primary schools in Ireland are mixed and 209 are either for girls or boys. The proportion of single-sex schools at primary level has always been significantly lower. Currently, government data indicates that there are just 228 single-sex national schools compared to 2,900 that are mixed. Single-sex schools must get the approval of their school patron, usually the local Catholic bishop, before they can become co-educational. Then an application must be approved by the Department of Education. The department is generally in favour of schools becoming co-ed. However, it can decline a request if it believes that the move will cause a lack of school spaces or places for girls or boys in a particular location. The growth of mixed schools at the expense of single-sex is likely to continue. The Department of Education no longer funds the creation of new single-sex schools, so their numbers cannot grow. That would kind of make sense, all right, wouldn't it? I mentioned last week when I was doing something about data, this time of the year, the new year, is always a great time for data. Well, I have another data story for you today. Newly released data shows that instrumentation engineers, ad reviewers, and mechanical and electrical project managers are the most difficult jobs to fill. The hardest to fill jobs analysis of Irish job posts by job site Indeed shows that online moderators, tax consultants and construction specialists are also proving difficult to recruit. Ireland's analysis examined job postings from the 1st of January last year to the end of November last to determine which positions were most likely to remain open for over 60 days. That's an indicator of them being hard to fill. I'm just checking the time on this. I'm good. It's all right then. We can rock on. Job postings for instrumentation engineers ranked in first position with just under 63% of advertised roles remaining open for 60 days plus. These engineers are responsible for planning, installing, monitoring and maintaining control systems and machinery within manufacturing environments. Other engineering disciplines feature throughout the top 20, with many involving construction-related roles. Amid a shortage of construction workers, posts for medical and electrical project managers, civil supervisors, civil technicians, mechanical, electrical and plumbing managers, and ecologists all feature in the top 20. The latter are required to report on the likely impact of proposed construction works on the environment and surrounding habitats. Jobs for lawyers rank fourth in the list of 57%. remaining open for more than 60 days, while 49% of job postings for tax consultants remain open after the time period. In a sign of the increasing prevalence of online advertising and the rise of social media, jobs for ad reviewers rank in second position at 61%, while posts for online moderators are in 13th position at just under 50%. Ad reviewers are in charge of checking the content of adverts to ensure that they are accurate, the content is accurate and appropriate. Moderators tend to increasingly work for online companies, particularly those involved in social media, to review content and ensure it adheres to a platform's rules. Jack Kennedy is the senior economist at Indeed, and he says given the increased cost of living, employees in some hard-to-fill roles may have a degree of leverage when it comes to seeking pay rises and the option of potentially moving roles if the available ones offer better pay and conditions. Meanwhile, he says the list should make for interesting reading for policymakers and those in the education and training sectors already focused on ways to increase the talent supply for crucial sectors, whether that is through more third-level places or apprenticeship opportunities. Yeah, it's getting difficult. No matter what end of the spectrum you're at, go away you. My finger hit that by mistake. No matter what end of the spectrum you're at, it seems very difficult for things to be filled. Oh, here's a man we haven't played in a while, Sean Kane.
The autumn winds are blowing across the South Saskatchewan prairie, bringing just a hint of cold, the winter's still to come. I swim my mind up turning towards the basin tip of Eire, in a green and pleasant country I used to call my home. When you're last in line for the family farm, your choices aren't that many. You leave behind the life you know and head out on your own. We were young and we didn't care, we saved up every penny, headed out to Canada, to a place I call my own. When the ice and the snow seem to go on forever, maybe we should quit and go back home. But then the springtime comes around and a chance of better weather, and we try just one more year to make it on our own. We left Ireland 7 years ago. We were going to get married, buy some land and build a house and raise a family. The 2 years drought, the 2 years flood, our dreams soon got buried, with debt piles high as the winter snow that brought us to our knees. When you fall behind and the payments due, the banks don't show much pity. The call alone we had to sell and lost all we had owned. Now I'm working in a factory in a cold and concrete city, in a time and place a million miles from a place that I have known. When the ice and the snow seem to go on forever, maybe we should quit and go back home. But then springtime comes around again and a chance of better weather, and we try just one more year to make it on our own. Of Saskatchewan lie golden in the sunshine. Summer breeze pushed the clouds across the prairie sky. But my memory lies where Irish skies lie in the turn of springtime. The simpler times, the simpler minds kept promises for life. When the ice and the snow seem to go on forever, maybe we should quit and go back home. But then springtime comes around again and a chance of better weather, and we try just one more year to make it on our own. When the ice and the snow
That's Sean Kane and a song that is called The Fields of Saskatchewan. It's a hard one to say if your teeth aren't in properly, isn't it? I'm trying to think, was I at the launch of that album? I can't remember. I think there's something in my head that tells me I was at the launch. I think I have a memory of interviewing Sean about it. And I think there might have been a couple of tickets left behind in the studio. I can't, just it'll come to me. It will come to me. It's old age letting me down now. But that was an album that was called The Irish Scattering. And all the songs on the album related to places that the Irish went to down through the years. And of course, a lot of people went to Saskatchewan down through the years as well. Big Irish population there. No, on Tuesday morning, the Irish Independent, that was yesterday morning, the Irish Independent reported that a snake was on the run, was on the slither, having escaped its owner in County Kilkenny. The corn snake was found late last week, apparently, in Kilkenny during the very cold weather, and was dropped off at the National Reptile Zoo, which is based in Kilkenny City. That was fortunate. The search was underway to locate the snake's owner and reunite them with their lost pet. That's assuming they lost it. They might have just thrown it out. You wouldn't know. The National Reptile Zoo Director James Hennessy said that the snake was found near Nolan Park in Kilkenny City. That'll be the home of the GAA in Kilkenny City. The zoo got a call to say that a snake had been found in the area, and apparently the zoo asked for a few photographs of the snake first so that they could check it out, make sure that it wasn't venomous. But the guy apparently just turned up at the door of the reptile zoo about 30 minutes later with the snake in a bag. I haven't had an update on that, so I don't know whether they've managed to find the owner or not. But anyway, speaking of the Independent, Media House Ireland, the company that owns newspaper titles, including the Irish Independent, the Sunday Independent, Sunday World and Belfast Telegraph, has announced another voluntary redundancy programme. It follows a previous round of job cuts in March of last year. The company employs around 549 staff in its publishing division on the island of Ireland, and the company is seeking a reduction in staffing levels of approximately 10% across its publishing organisation. Media House said that its two traditional revenue streams, single copy sales and print advertising, are both under pressure, and that while they are being replaced by revenues from digital subscribers and digital advertising, it's happening at a slower pace. In a statement, the company said that the group estimates that this year 70% of their revenue will come from print and 30% from digital, but by 2030 it foresees that it will be a 30-70 ratio of print to digital. That's not long away. That's only 6 years away. It remains a successful news organisation into the future, and to continue to play a central role in journalism on the island of Ireland, the company needs to adapt to the landscape in which it operates and to the changing needs of customers. Chief Executive Peter van der Meersch told the media companies all over the world, said that media companies all over the world are struggling with the same dilemma of how to generate sufficient revenues to finance the ambition to produce excellent journalism. Belgian Dutch group Media House bought Independent News and Media back in 2019. Indeed, there was a kind of a dogfight when that purchase was being planned and so on. But anyway, they won out on it. I heard him being interviewed on radio a little earlier on today, in fact, and it seemed like a very sensible man, and talking about the challenges that face the newspaper industry. And interestingly enough, I bought the Irish Times. Remember Catherine, jeepers. I spoke to Catherine Cleary, and she was on the programme 2 weeks ago, and she mentioned that she had an article in the Irish Times, and I bought it on the Saturday, and it was something like €4.60 to buy it. And I saw today online a subscription to the Irish Examiner for a month is €4. Now, do the math, as they say. Anyway, news on the way.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
And you welcome to the second hour of the programme, and thank you very much for tuning our way. As always, if you'd like to get in contact, you're more than welcome to do that. You can send a WhatsApp message to +34 645 99 67 95. I mentioned at the top of the programme, I'm back in Spain, all right, but I'm not in studio. I'm working remotely, so you can't call, but you can send an email as well, which is studio@tre.radio, or send it to my own email address, which is Ger, G-E-R, @tre.radio. I have two fascinating guests for you to meet. And I know they're fascinating because, in fact, I spoke with them this afternoon. It was a pre-record that I did with them. Richard and David Mulcahy, they're brothers. And they've set up a wonderful project which is called 100 Million Trees Project. They want to, what do they want to do? They want to plant 100 million trees in a 10-year period. Fascinating. So I'm going to bring you that very shortly on the programme, because we had a grand old chat, and two lovely fellas to chat to as well. And there might be something in there for you if you're listening. For those of you that are listening, there might be something there. You don't have to be in Ireland to do something like they're doing. But anyway, that's all coming up in this hour, and we have some news stories for you, and I've got some music as well. Some of the music you will know, but some of the music you may not know. Sure, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Education. I want to bring you this story. If you've ever heard the news on RTE, it's quite possible that Brian Dobson might have been involved in it by either reading it, or he may have been working on Morning Ireland, or he may have been on the telly. But Brian Dobson has been with RTE for 37 years. Well, he has announced that he is going to retire from RTE at the end of April this year. He is currently presenter of the RTE News at 1 on RTE Radio 1, after working as a journalist and broadcaster with RTE for 37 years, as I said. Since joining the national broadcaster in 1987, he has presented all of RTE's flagship news programmes across television and radio, and presented RTE television coverage of elections and special state events. He said after 37 fantastic years with RTE, the time has come to move on, but says that he will miss working with some wonderfully talented and hard-working colleagues. RTE Director General Kevin Backhurst said that Brian represents the best in public service journalism. He said that for many years, Brian Dobson has brought a calm authority to the most important stories every day. He demonstrates a depth of knowledge and an absolute integrity in his work, and has never been afraid to ask the toughest questions and hold the powerful to account. Personally, Mr. Backhurst said, it has been a pleasure and a privilege to work with him. That's nice, isn't it? High praise indeed. And indeed, before Mr. Backhurst was the DG at RTE, he had spent some years working in the news department, so he would be very familiar with Brian Dobson. If you remember back around May, I'm looking here now in the diary as I'm talking to you. I should have had this. Oh, there it is. No, it's the week before. No, it's the week before that. It was the 3rd of May. That's when it was. I spoke to Dr. Michelle Maher, and she's from an organisation called See Her Elected. And the organisation sets out to work with women who want to be part of local government. And we were talking about the elections, the local elections, which are coming up in June of this year in Ireland. And I was asking what her hope was. And she said that she has a dream, she said. And the dream is that Brian Dobson will be doing the coverage of the election. Now, he won't now because he's retiring in April, and that he will be mystified by the number of women that have been elected. And I meant to give her an all email today to ask her, was she devastated that her dream can't come true. I'll do it tomorrow morning, because Dobbo, as he's well known, is retiring. Yeah, I like Brian Dobson. I must say, I've always liked his delivery. I've always liked his presence. And yes, he does ask the tough questions. So we wish Brian Dobson a long and healthy retirement when he finishes off in April of this year. What am I doing now? Have I time? I have. I want to do this, don't I? Yes, Employers Group. This is very important, actually. Employers Group, IBEC, has written to the Taoiseach to highlight concerns about the rising cost of doing business, and specifically the pace and scale of government-imposed labour costs. The escalating cumulative costs include the increase in the minimum wage to €12.70, which came into effect in January the 1st this year, as well as increase to employer PRSI, pay-related social insurance, changes to statutory sick pay, the imminent introduction of pension auto-enrolment, increases in salary thresholds for work permits, and enhanced protective leave entitlements. Danny McCoy is the Chief Executive Officer of IBEC. And he said that in the letter to Leo Varadkar that the increased labour costs are imposing an unrealistic burden on businesses. He said the implementation of the changes in government now risk creating the most significant cost competitiveness challenge faced by Irish businesses since the pre-financial crisis period. In its latest leadership sentiment survey taken just before Christmas, IBEC found that the increasing costs of doing business was the single most significant challenge for business leaders heading into 2024. When asked at with what their priorities were for the next government, 74% regarded the cost of doing business as the most important issue. IBEC estimates that the government's labour market policies will add €4 billion annually to the wage bill of Irish employers and result in labour cost increases of between 25 and 30% in the most impacted firms. While the economy remains in a robust position with sustained growth, costs are rising rapidly and many businesses are struggling to maintain margins, Mr. McCoy said. While many of the changes have merit, IBEC's primary concern is the lack of coordination resulting in these costs unnecessarily converging. IBEC is calling on the government to pause all further labour market policy measures which involve a direct or indirect cost to employers. The group says that employers need an immediate signal from government that the current trajectory of increasing labour cost measures will not continue until impact assessment and coordination is agreed upon. ICTU, which is the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, has described IBEC's call for what it describes as a halt in progress on employment rights as unacceptable and should not be tolerated. ICTU General Secretary Owen Reedy said many workers in Ireland remain seriously affected by the cost of living crisis. The national minimum wage has increased this year, but it should be remembered that this is merely playing catch-up, given previous increases were well below inflation. People must live as well as work in this economy, and ICTU expects the government to continue with its commitment to introduce a living wage over the next period. IBEC, meanwhile, wants a full impact assessment of increased labour costs on business arising from the totality of recent labour market policy measures to be published. It says that there has been no consideration given to the cumulative impact of the scattergun approach of labour market measures introduced by a range of different government departments and agencies. The employers group is also calling on the government to commit to a new competitiveness charter, setting an annual ceiling on the total amount of additional labour market costs which will be imposed on businesses in any single year. As I said, an important one. Right, I'm going to play a song and then we're going to take a break after that, and then I'm going to introduce you to David and Richard Mulcahy. Here's a man we've had on the programme, I'm glad to say. Here's Mick Handley.
Take a look at the stars for a moment, if you have a moment to spare. I know life is short and it's so hard to squeeze in a moment somewhere. You might be the one at the window, or the soul in the desert wide-eyed. Believe me, you're not all alone, or the first to be beautifully mystified. Lend an ear to the sound of the ocean if you want to hear more than the sea. Stay, there's nothing to fear at the door to eternity. And draw back the curtain forever. Take a ride on a handful of dust. If you still think the good book's the answer, go back to bed with that book if you must. But please let me find my own way to sleep. I'm helpless, so helpless, sometimes that I weep. Please let me find my own way to cry. in the storm, but I think I'll get by. I can still see the new rose aglow and the dandelion ball on the grass. Tonight it might leave on the wind, but I've got no problem with that. Tomorrow we'll find a survivor. Blow the clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3. Pray that my children remember the hours that we spent smiling carefree. I know I'm preaching, not really practicing that which I preach. But I'm weary of certainties, knowing tomorrow's not easy to reach. I saw the great fire in the distance, saw the great light turn to dust. If you still think the good book's the answer, go back to bed with that book if you must. But please let me find my own way to sleep. I'm helpless, so helpless, sometimes that I weep. Please let me find my own way to cry. I know we're the dust of the storm, but I think I'll get by. Please let me find my own way to cry. I know we're the dust in the storm, but I think I'll get by.
Oh, so powerful, isn't he? That is the wonderful voice of Mick Handley and a song that's called Dust in the Storm. A quick break and then you will listen to an interview that I did. You will. It sounded like an order. Sorry, I'll be playing an interview that I did this afternoon with David and Richard Mulcahy. They want to plant 100 million trees. Fair play to them. It's coming up just after these.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Thank you for listening to Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
The 100 Million Trees Project is a national initiative. It's developed by two brothers, Richard and David Mulcahy, and the aim basically is to see the planting of 100 million native Irish trees across the island of Ireland in the next 10 years or thereabouts, or within a decade. Now, it's a community-driven initiative, and the idea behind it is to reverse the immense environmental damage caused by the reduction of forests worldwide and the loss of huge areas of biodiversity. As I said, two brothers, Richard and David. I'm going to talk to both of them, and I'm going to start with Richard, if I can, and say hello to you, Richard, because you're the man that I've been talking to prior to this. Richard, good evening, and welcome to the programme. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Ger, for having us on.
Not at all. This is a wonderful project. When I was looking at your website, Richard, and I was looking at what you do and what your brother David does, apart from planting trees, you are both hugely successful people in your respective spheres. So can I ask you just to give me a little bit of a history on yourself, what you do, and where you're coming from?
So basically, our father was a cardiologist and I was expected to go into medicine. And needless to say, I didn't have the academic skills or brain set to do it. I think I lasted in college about 3 or 4 months before I was kicked out. So I ended up in business. And so I have been in business all my life. I've been very lucky, was able to build a couple of businesses and sell them. And it gave me the opportunity to do a lot more in my life. And my final career at the moment, I'm working with a very good company called Unifar. They're a PLC in the pharmaceutical industry. And I'm doing some consultancy work with them. And then this project I think is our ultimate, certainly for me, until I get to the wheelchair stage.
All right, hopefully that won't be too soon. David,
no, I'm planning on it.
David, in relation to yourself, Richard said that your dad was a cardiologist, and the apple didn't far fall from the tree in your case, did it?
No, well, actually, I was intending to be a neurologist, but I was deselected for an interview for neurology in England for various reasons, and I ended up getting a cardiology job. So actually, I ended up somewhat by accident becoming a cardiologist.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah,
and
yes,
you've travelled doing this whole cardiologist thing, haven't you? You've been to the UK and to the States.
Yeah, I did about 10 years in London and then a year in the National Institutes of Health in Washington in the States. And then came back to just before the new telehospital was opened, or for a couple of years before, and set up the operating service in the new telehospital.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, look, as we say in Ireland, it's very obvious to listeners that when we're talking to both yourself, David, and to Richard, we're not dealing with muck, as we say. So, although we will be talking about muck as well.
I think you might be the only one, Ger, who would think that. A lot of people think you're dealing with muck.
Well, and by the way, Ger, we think the same about each other.
I would imagine. Okay, I'm going to throw a question out, and I'm just going to ask where the origin was, whose idea it was, and whoever's idea it was can take it from there. How's that?
Yep, Richard, fire ahead there.
So I suppose I was inspired by initially by our father, who was very interested in trees and used to make us come out on a Saturday and dig the hole so he could bury the latest tree he got from a present from one of his patients. And of course, we weren't overly happy about that. But when I retired from selling my last business, I went and bought a farm and I planted 150,000 trees on it. And then David inspired me with his project, which he'd tell you about, it called Birds, Bees and Native Trees, which is to plant a number of trees in different communities. He'll explain that. And it gave me the idea and said, look, in a way, there's no point in us planting 23 trees here. Communities were planting 100 trees here, 100 trees there. And the reality is, Ger, we are facing a catastrophe. We have to be planting millions of trees to do something about the environment. And planting trees is the most effective way of extracting carbon and the quickest way of extracting carbon from the atmosphere. And it just gave me an idea. I said, let's just go and do it. I discovered there was a Japanese botanist called Akiri Miyawaki, and he came up with the concept of planting trees very close together. And, of course, that is a perfect way of getting trees into the ground, because instead of planting 1,000 trees an acre, you're planting 10,000 trees in an acre. So the trees are on top of each other, and because they can't grow out, they grow up. And they grow up much quicker, and they create an area of biodiversity far quicker than traditionally. So, I talked with David about this, and they said, look, we're capable of doing this. You have to believe, you have to set yourself a target, and you have to believe you can do something. And really, that's where it all started. The two of us decided, to hell with this, we're going to do it.
David, you mentioned to me before we went on air that this kind of kicked off for you. Was it the week before the pandemic struck back in 2020?
Yeah, I set it up with two friends, Jerry Sheehan, a solicitor, and Brian McMahon, a solicitor. And we set it up. I think we signed the kind of, in inverted commas, the director's clause about 2 days before the pandemic hit. So, but actually it was quite good, because we ended up being able to, because it was outdoor and everything, we actually did quite a bit of constructive work over the few years, planting trees north and south in various places. And Richard then came up with this idea, which I thought was a fantastic idea, because I did feel the weight of kind of, having a session and planting 10 trees. I mean, it's terrific to do. It's good for the kids to see it. It's actually quite an exciting project, and we're learning very quickly. There's a lot of talk about the environment, but what we're finding is that the people, ordinary people up and down the country, are ringing up with their quarter acre at the back of their field or on their farm or anything else, and are really engaging in this. That's what's going to make it possible. It'd be terrific if farmers get on board, which they are. So when it becomes a total community thing, then our plan for 1 million trees next year, and I don't know, Richard, whether the plan is for 5 million trees the following year, but the concept is a real one, which may well work now once we get the people on board.
All right. Before we go to Richard, just for figures, I was doing the math, as the Americans would say, at 100 million trees, and I know that you're looking at planting somewhere between 500 and 2,500 per site, if you can.
Yeah.
That's 40,000 sites that you need as a minimum to do this, which is 4,000 sites per year over 10 years. Is that achievable?
Well, I think that it's kind of clearly obvious that it's not achievable for Richard and myself.
Yeah.
First of all, we have day jobs, but I think what we're going to show is that even if we plant 250,000 native trees this year, that will actually have an impact on the number of native trees in this country. Not a big one, but the vast majority of trees in this country, were the apart from the Malta and the Vatican, were the least forested country in Europe out of 39 countries, which is completely unexcusable, really, apart from difficult to explain. So I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to get something in motion, and then maybe somebody will turn around and say, well, actually, this is a good national plan. Let's do it. And then if we can find the money in advance to get our Irish tree growers who have been exporting Irish trees abroad because people weren't planting them, if we can find them to kind of pick up their growth and production and know that we'll be buying their trees off them, then we can get on a roll. But it won't happen, of course, without the state or without very significant philanthropic contributions. But if we don't do it, it certainly won't happen.
All right. Richard, what are you looking at?
I think, Ger, just to follow on that, I mean, you're right. We're going to need 40,000. We have in our heads, we need 40,000 sites. But that in land terms is tiny. It's to plant 100 million trees is literally going to be, if it was in conventional planting, 100 million trees would be 100,000 acres. But we're only talking about 10,000 acres. It's a tiny amount of land when you consider that Ireland has 20 million acres. So you say 40,000, but we have 137,000 farmers, registered farmers in Ireland.
Okay.
We have Board Bia on board with us who are supporting us and promoting us through their national foods, their national quality scheme. They have 55,000 registered farmers. So actually, it wouldn't be that difficult. There are farmers with patches of fields that they're not using all around the country. It's not actually a big ask. It's the numbers, the mathematics of it isn't that complicated. We're not put off by the numbers. I mean, we were on. There was a short piece on RTE recently on the news when we were planting in Glenstall, and just literally from that 4-minute clip, we had 217 people offering us sites.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
So it's not. It's not the big thing here, Ger. The big thing is that we've got the momentum going. We need corporates to stop talking about greenwash and about removing their plastic and about turning their lights off. And we need corporates to get the finger out and to plant trees, because we need the money to plant the trees, and it's the corporate's responsibility. A lot of these companies, they think, oh yeah, we'll just talk, we'll put a couple of photovoltaic cells in or solar panels in, and so that's going to do feck all for extracting the carbon from that we need to extract now. They have to get serious about this, and they have to start planting trees, and we'll do the planting for them. We're committing ourselves, even though we have day jobs, we are committing ourselves to make this happen. And David and myself will be with this project to the very end. But the companies need to get the checkbook out and write the check, and we'll plant the trees for them.
All right. Now, when you say that you'll plant the trees, the important thing here for people that are listening that may have a small bit of land that they would like to donate to you, it's just the land that they give, because you will do everything else for them. You'll supply the trees and you will actually plant them as well.
David, do you want to come in there?
Yeah. So for instance, although you mentioned 500 to 500 trees, we're trying to focus on the 2,500. So we're trying to encourage people, if we can, to give a quarter of an acre. So what we do is we ask them some questions. First of all, is it suitable? Is there stuff under the ground? Are there electric wires over? And if it's a suitable quarter of an acre, no matter where it is, then the only thing we ask them to do is to prepare the land. And that means just to plough it so that you can actually loosen up the soil, and you can stick 2,500 trees in 4 hours instead of 4 days. So that's all. And if the issue in Ireland, of course, is if you've got rabbits or hares, you need a rabbit fence to protect the trees for a few years. And if you've got deer, then you need deer fencing. So that's the same, all around the world. You need to protect these trees. They're like babies. They need to be protected for a year or two until they get strong enough that they can look after themselves. So we pay for the trees, and we also pay for the professional planters who do a fantastic job, and they'll plant 2,500 trees, and 2 of them will plant them in 4 or 5 hours. So, for instance, we did Ferryhouse Racecourse about 6 weeks ago, and we had a site which was beside the second last fence, quarter of an acre, just basically covered in gorse. And 3 days later, it was completely prepared with beautiful soil, the top the sod taken off. A fencer came in and did a beautiful post and rail, and it's on all the videos now. We came in and planted 2,500 native trees, all done in 3 days. Once a decision was made, yes, let's do this.
Right.
So it's very achievable. What you need to do is you need to get people who want to do it, who can see the benefit of it, who hopefully won't cut the trees down, because we've got no contract. We give the trees to the people. They become theirs as soon as they go in the gate. We give the trees to the people, and it's not like the government restrictions where the land has to be in forest from then on. People can do what they like, but hopefully, because there's going to be no financial benefit to planting the tree, that they will do it to save the world, or to help with the environment and to help mitigate against climate change. So it's very doable.
How are you marketing this, and how did you start with this? Because the idea was conceived, but then it had to happen. How did that start for you?
Well, I mean, that obviously to start it off, we said, look, we're going to have to do a small amount of trees to understand what the issue. Like any business, you've got an idea and you're starting off and you go in a certain direction and you learn from that, and then you move and you change things around a bit until you get it right. So our target was to plant 20,000 trees the first year, and in doing that we recognized we had to create a website. Most importantly, because nowadays everything is driven by social media, we had to record. We had to get a videographer to follow everything we were doing, and then put these videos out for people to see it. And we needed to get somebody to sponsor the initial planting. And a good friend of mine was president of a company in the States called Herbalife. And he traveled 250,000 air miles a year. And I said to him, Des, you're a disgrace. You're destroying the environment. And he said, well, look, as part of my job, what can I do? And I said to him, well, I tell you what you can do. Give me 100,000 and I will give you a pass for the rest of your life to keep flying, and you will still be in benefit because of the trees you're going to plant with that. And he immediately accepted and wrote a check for 100,000. And that started us off. Wow. And of course, the concept of, none of us are going to stop traveling. But if we can get people to say, okay, I'm going to travel, but I'm going to plant a tree every time I travel. Well, that is such a huge benefit. At least you're neutralizing the carbon you're creating. So that 100,000 got us going. We developed our website. And to be honest with you, it's just, the ordinary people are talking about what can I do to make a difference. And this seemed to capture their imagination. And we've had a lot of publicity. out of this, and it just keeps growing and growing.
Where did your love of the environment come from? Because you're both passionate about it.
Well, when I moved back to Ireland, and Tala Hospital opened. I moved down the country, lived in Ballymore Eustace, so I just had enough space where I was able to. We were able to plant a lot of different trees and a lot of different types of tree. I gave myself the challenge of planting 100 different types of tree, and then my 3 daughters were madly keen on various animals. We ended up with about 15 guinea pigs and 8 rabbits and 6 rescue horses, 2 donkeys, and various other things like that. So it was quite an outdoorsy type of way to grow. And as Richard had mentioned, when we were kids, we lived in a rather large but tumble down kind of house in the centre of Dublin with a couple of acres. And my father was quite keen. He was involved in the Tree Society, and he was very keen on trees. And then we kind of became keen on trees. And then, of course, Richard did an amazing job. He bought a farm, which is effectively a single field of about 160 acres, and he planted 160,000 trees. And, of course, if everybody do that, we'd be in a better position than we are now. But yeah, it's been the outdoor is really nice. Forestry is really nice. I don't know how many people enjoy walking around, Cement City, where they can go out and walk in a forest. I'm doing an article at the moment, writing an article on whether trees should be prescribed by medicine. Whether we should actually be using, because we know of the mental and physical benefits of forests, particularly trees, urban trees, but also forests outside the cities. We know there are significant benefits, and we should appreciate that. And so we should try and look after them as best we can, instead of cut them all down and then moan about regulations. We should just take some social responsibility. And as Richard says, every time anybody has a chance to plant a tree or buy a tree, do it. It's a nice present to people as well.
Now, nobody is obviously going to be counting how many trees there are planted when this particular project is over. But have you a rough idea of where you're at right now, January 2024?
Yeah, so our target last year to get going and to understand the issues was 20,000 trees. And we achieved that and planted an extra 300 trees. So we did 20,300 trees in the last planting season. Our target for this planting season was to plant at least 10 times that, which is 200,000 plus trees. And at the moment, we're standing at 113,000. And we'll have, by the end of the planting season, in excess of 200,000 trees planted this season. And then the target for next year is 1 million trees. And just from the response of the RTE, we had inquiries for over 500,000 trees on the sites that we've been offered. So we have every confidence that we'll certainly hit our 200,000 target this year, and we'll have every confidence if we can get a corporate to give us 1.3 million is what we need, we will plant 1 million trees next year for that for the environment.
1.3 million, will that get you to the end of the project, or will you need that kind of funding? No, you'll need that kind of funding on an ongoing basis.
So that the reality is, and this is where David mentioned earlier on about where we will obviously need intervention. We'll need intervention either from a very significant polluter of the environment, somebody like a cement company or an airline. If we got the support of, say, an airline like Ryanair, and they asked every passenger when they were booking their ticket, would they contribute €2 to planting of a tree, we would have the money overnight to plant the 100 million trees. Because now look, Ryanair are going to have 140 million people travelling in their planes next year. And so what we would be saying to them, it would be easy, just donate €2 and we will guarantee to plant a tree for you for €2. And that is very easily achievable. The 1.3 million is for next year is to plant 1 million trees. And if we get that money, we will have those trees planted next year. The target the following year is 5 million, and we're building it up all the time.
What kind of people, or is it organisations? Is it individuals, farmers, ordinary people? You know, who is working with you already?
Well, I think that, so the majority of the plantings we've done have been farmers or private individuals with land who just, you know, like the idea of probably a free native mini forest. There are a few benefits to mini forests. Number one, they can be fitted in, obviously, in a quarter of an acre. Number two, because they're intensely planted, they become resistant to human entry after about 2 years. Humans probably the most dangerous creatures of all to them. Number three, perhaps much more important with the climate change that's going on, I think the figures for Canada this year was that 4 times the total tree stock of Ireland was burnt in forest fires in Canada this summer alone. So if you plant 50,000 native mini forests, first of all, you're providing 50,000 areas of fantastic biodiversity, because each of these mini forests has 15 different types of native trees. So you've got every bud, cherry, blossom that you could possibly imagine, all within this one area. And you've got 50,000 around the country. So you don't have to worry about forest fires. You're giving all these little hubs for birds and bees and insects and all these things which have been very badly treated over the last number of years. And it's not an accident that there's a measurable, dramatic fall in the number of birds and native bees. Everybody talks about the honeybee, but there are lots and lots of different types of bees, and a lot of them are doing badly. So we have a responsibility to look after our environment, and this is a really nice way for two people with a bit of an idea, at least, to make their contribution. And hopefully, when I mentioned earlier, hopefully the state will look at this. And I just tell you one little story with regard to the state. We had one person who was going to plant a forest for us before Christmas, 2,500 native trees, which we were paying for and we were going to plant. And she rang, and she had been advised by a member of a state organisation not to do it in case it might jeopardise any funded biodiversity plans by one or other departments.
Wow.
So what you had was a situation where this lady was going to plant 2,500 native trees for the benefit of biodiversity, and she was advised, because it might affect her grant application, to do something for the biodiversity. So that just shows how complex life can be. So what we're trying to just get on with it, work with the people. We're using quarter of an acre sites where you don't need licenses. All the private individuals who want to do it can do it, and we will be there. And as we say to them, we'll plant a forest within 2 weeks of being told that their land is going to be prepared.
That was my next question.
I mean, just on that. So David mentioned about the farmers and the in private individuals, but what started happening in the last couple of weeks since we were on television is that companies have started contacting us. So, for example, the IDA have hundreds of sites all around the country, and they were very interested in this, and in particular they're promoting Ireland as green, and they have asked us to do a big planting for them on one of their sites, and if that works out, then they're going to roll it out into all of their sites. And also the GAA individual clubs, we planted the GAA Centre of Excellence in Wexford. They had some spare land, and Ballymun Kickham's we're planting them on the 10th of February, and the football team, some of the team are going to be coming out and planting with the local community. So more corporates are now starting to get involved in the GAA, and really it's the start. It's like the snowball effect. It's just starting, but it's beginning to pick up, and we'll find more and more corporates will start getting involved now.
And of course, if you link in with GAA clubs, I mean, county boards are all sponsored at this stage, and Stadia are sponsored, so they may be able to convince the people that are sponsoring them to add to your fund. Might be nice.
Yeah, well, look, we're open to anything, but what we really want is we want a company who is serious about this, who not just wants to, for marketing purposes, to be seen to be doing something. Because in reality, Ger, these companies are all dependent on consumers, on people buying from them and spending money. But the way the world is going, it's going to be in such chaos. A lot of these companies, their profits are going to nosedive. They're going to have huge impacts on business. They have to be part of this solution. They can't be sitting on the fence and just be talking about it. So we need companies who are serious about this and see that by giving, that they will get their reward as well.
Okay, so the big thing is for you is the world of corporations, corporate world, and of course people that have maybe a quarter of an acre or more that they would like to donate to you, to give to you, so that you could plant these trees. I mean, they're two simple but yet big asks. But
they're certainly simple, and it's just the will to do it. And it's amazing. We've been overwhelmed with the interest that people have had and said, and people saying, God, I really want to do this. It's fantastic. And they're not giving us the land. It's their land.
Yes.
They own the land. They own the trees. They're facilitating this project on their land. And that's the generosity of Irish people is coming through, as always has over the years in different forms. But this is something really positive that's going to make a huge difference, we believe.
Does it feel good to be doing something positive and doing something very much, in your face, that it's working well for the environment?
It feels terrific for two. I think, technically speaking, Richard and myself are old age pensioners, although I don't think we really kind of quite see it that way. But it does feel terrific, yeah. But it's always terrific to do things where the people kind of get caught up with it, and that's a proper. Now you've got yourself a proper national program, not necessarily when when you're dealing with government, and the government can't be expected to sort all the problems out. So it's really good for the people to try and deal with the environment, deal with their own nature, deal with their own environment themselves. So this is kind of a perfect fix. I think Richard really enjoys it. I enjoy it. Our sister Tina has now got involved and is kind of disciplining us. She's giving us all the locations, and she will ring me up and tell me, give me the order of houses I'm to visit on a certain day to check all their sites. So, it's a bit of a family thing, but it's very enjoyable. And I have to say, I've never seen anybody planting a tree who, with clay on their hands, who wasn't a happy person. It's a nice thing to do. A lot of people have never planted a tree, but it's actually very rewarding. We see all these people walking away after planting 2,500 trees and thinking, my God, that's brilliant. It's for the same price. The same price is, okay, granted, the same price as a weekend in a hotel, and you'll have a mini forest that'll be there for 100 years. And when a lot of the smaller trees have died off and they've regenerated, your Scots pine and your oak are going to be standing up there tall. And, so whatever we do, hopefully would be there. We may not be there to see it, but we'll know that it will have happened.
All right.
It's well known that if you look at a lot of these reports, the best thing for humans, the most pleasurable thing for humans is to give to others, because that's the most reward you get. And really, from our point of view, we've been very privileged in our lives and our careers, and we've been blessed that we've been successful. And it's time to give back, and we need to give back while we still can. And as David mentions, we are technically OAPs, but I have absolutely no doubt that this project will give us an extra lease of life as well, and keep us going much longer than we would have thought.
Okay. Just to give people your website address, it's 100 Million Trees Project, and the 100 is 100. So 100 Million Trees Project.ie if you'd like to take a look at what's happening there. Richard, before I let both of you go, Richard, you didn't say at the start, but I know that you're passionate about the radio. And you're a radio presenter yourself in Dublin.
Sure. One of the things I decided when I was very young was that I wanted to try and experience as much as life as possible. And when I was 16, back in the early 70s, myself and David, again, we got involved together. We became DJs, and in those days, in the early 70s, they were always mobile discos, so we were called the Odd Couple Disco.
Right.
And we used to go, and the first disco I did was for a fellow classmate, and it was the first time that he was allowed to have girls in the house to a party. So I said I would bring along Mum's stereo and her Tom Jones and Richard Harris records.
Right.
And I remember getting £5 for doing it, and the pleasure of doing it was immense. And it always gave me an interest, and I always said to myself, I'd love to get into radio. And the reality was that came up a number of years ago, and I started doing a Sunday radio show for Dublin City Radio, and I did that for a year. Now, it was a sort of a free service there, and you didn't have the backup. So it was quite time-consuming trying to, getting guests and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed it. And again, it was a whole thing about meeting people and questioning people and getting a feel for, just the world we live in. So, yes, it's been one of the many things I've done, Ger. But this is the biggest project at the moment. And, I would like to say, and it's important to say, that we have got to this stage because of the huge energy of enthusiasm of all sorts of people that have come along to help us. But it wouldn't have happened without the money people. And I have to thank people like Uniphar for being having the vision to see we're not going to talk about, we're going to do something, and giving us the money. And particularly Des starting us off
yes,
with the money last year, and hopefully this year that we will have another corporate who will come in with the 1.3 million. So
you'd never know who'd be listening. Final question, either of you can take this one. It's lovely to hear you talk about working together, and then for you to say that you were at it back in the 1970s as DJs. You obviously get on very well as brothers.
We do. We haven't seen that much because we both kind of went to different parts of the country over the last 25 years. You don't actually see that much of each other. But there's one thing that Richard said about I think the last disco, he kind of pushed me out and took control. But the last disco we did, I was the senior registrar in the National Heart Hospital in London. I got phoned up to say that the American ambassador and his wife in the American embassy in Moscow wanted us to do the St. Patrick's Night disco for the 600 GIs in the embassy. And they flew, I remember Richard, they flew Richard equipment, and they flew me from London, and we did that disco. That was the year the wall came down. I think it was 1989. And
it was around then.
Wow.
That was my disco with. So there you go. They heard we were a world famous rock and roll disco. I don't think they were aware of the fact that we hadn't done a disco for some years. But anyway, we went.
The Tom Jones albums travelled far, didn't they?
They certainly did, yeah.
Listen, I'm going to call it a day and leave you two guys get on with your day. I really do appreciate you talking to me today. You mentioned just in passing Glenstall Abbey, where you were planting trees there before Christmas, back around November or thereabouts. And for listeners who may not know, Glenstall Abbey, it's a school, but it's also a monastery where monks live and work and do their things. Was that an unusual experience?
Well, we're not in the habit of doing things like that.
Boom.
There is a slight story to that our stepmother, her brother was abbot of Glenstall a number of years ago.
Okay.
And so we used our influence and said, that David has had a contact with the Pope, and he might tell you about that. But we felt that the clergy should be setting by example about the environment and the world. And maybe, David, you might tell that quick story.
Actually, Glenstow were brilliant about that. But in fact, when I set up Bugsby's and Native Trees, and I was hoping that the church would take a kind of a forward role in kind of, encouraging tree planting and, looking after the people in terms of the environment and climate change. But I wrote to David Attenborough and to the Pope and sent them a Bugsby's and Native Trees T-shirt each, and wrote a letter to tell them what we were going to do, and got 2 very nice letters back from David Attenborough. But I also got a nice letter back from the Vatican, wishing very well in our trees. So I've kind of taken that and passed it on to the 100 Million Tree Project, because I think the Pope would still be very keen about that. And in fact, I've just recently written to the Pope citing a couple of church plantings we've done, just to show him that, that his message was well heeded. And that the Pope is very fond of tree planting.
Well, they may not be too fond of the birds and the bees, but obviously the bugs and the bees are okay by Vatican standards. Listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this, and for listeners, they're going to be able to hear the monks of Glenstow with some of the Gregorian chant that they do so beautifully. I want to say thank you very much indeed, Richard and David Mulcahy, for joining me today from the 100 Million Trees Project. I've enjoyed the conversation immensely. I've learned a lot, and congratulations to both of you, and I hope that you'll be around for a long, long time to plant maybe more than 100 million trees. Thanks to both of you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Ger. Thank you.
Isn't that just beautiful? I could listen to that all day and all night. Beautiful. The monks of Glenstow Abbey in County Limerick. Attende Domine. Don't ask me what it means. I have no idea. Richard and David, I really enjoyed that conversation, and I'm glad that you stuck with me for it. Yeah, we're heading to the end of the programme. What did I want to tell you? There's something here that I wanted to mention, and yes, the Chief Executive of Irish Rural Link. Let me just minimise this because I want to keep an eye on the clock as well as everything else, all right? The Chief Executive of Irish Rural Link has welcomed proposed legislation that will keep cash circulating in society as more people turn to digital payments. Under plans brought to Cabinet yesterday by the Minister for Finance, Michael McGrath, shops and pharmacies will have to accept cash as part of plans to keep physical money in the economy, given that some people prefer to use it. The access to cash bill also gives the central bank powers to compel banks to provide... compel banks? When did they ever get compelled to do anything? To provide ATMs in areas where people have difficulty withdrawing cash. It's understood that Mr McGrath's aim is to restore the number of ATMs to 2022 levels before Ulster Bank and KBC left the retail banking market. So there we go. That's good news. And let's see if it does. It would be great to see the banks being compelled to do anything, wouldn't it? It would, yeah. That's it. We're done and dusted. A couple of things I want to say to you. Firstly, I want to remind you of something I mentioned at the start of the programme, that Francis Butler is back on Talk Radio Europe. He's starting his new series of musical ramblings on Sunday, the 4th of February from 1 p.m. and it will happen every Sunday after that, and it will be repeated every Saturday at 6 p.m. The other good news to tell you is that Stephen Ritson is back on air tomorrow afternoon between 12 and 3. He had been unwell, so he's back with us tomorrow from 12 until 2 for Europe Today. Looking forward to that. Thank you very much to Patricia Traynor for her story on Lough Gill on the programme today. Thanks a million, Patricia. And to David and to Richard Mulcahy, speaking about the 100 Million Trees project. Absolutely fabulous. I wish them well with it. And their website is 100milliontreesproject.ie, and the 100 is 100. All right, just in case you want to have a look at that again, and in case you missed it. I want to say thank you as well to our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor on the programme, Antonio Sierra. Antonio, thank you so much for the work that you do on a daily basis for Live on Eire. It's much appreciated and very valuable as well. So thank you very much for that. We're going to the BBC just after the news at 9 o'clock, and we'll stay with the Beeb until tomorrow morning when Dave will be along for Daybreak with Dave at 8 o'clock. I'm back with you on the wireless next Wednesday, the 31st of January. Join me, please, if you can, for another edition of Live on Eire. Until then, from me, Ger Sweeney, bye-bye and thank you.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.